Hello and welcome. I'm very excited to announce that I'm here with Santa Cruz Warriors Head Coach Nicholas Kerr. How you doing today, Nick?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You guys on the Santa Cruz Warriors had a heartbreaking loss to end the season against the Stockton Kings. You guys played really hard, but ended up not being enough. How did you feel about your first season as being a head coach?
First season overall, super fun. Thought our team played really hard. Thought we executed a lot of what we were trying to do. We played fast. We moved the ball. We led the league in assists. But yeah, when you bring up that final game of the year, we had them on the ropes. We're up 5 with a minute 30 left. You have the ball. They made a couple more plays than we did down the stretch, but was still super proud of our group for the effort that game, our execution, the focus we had in the second half. And at the end of the day, someone wins and someone loses, and it's nothing to hang our heads about.
Yeah, you guys really impressed me watching you guys throughout the whole year. Who do you think improved the most from the beginning of the year until the very end?
There's a few candidates for sure, but I'd go with Javen Johnson.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Started the year, played summer league, was definitely, what's the right way of putting this? In the process of learning, and by the end of the year, you fully trusted him to be great defensively. Obviously, always had the shooting, but the ability to get to the rim, his passing, he made a huge jump. But plenty of our guys made jumps. Yuri Collins, Kendrick Davis, Jackson Rowe. You know, that's the point of the G League. The hope is that these guys come into your program in September, October, and then improve dramatically by March, April. And in my view, that's what a healthy program does. And we succeeded this year, and we'll have to do it again next year.
Yeah. Javen was the only person from your guys' team to make the G League All-Star game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think Kendrick ended up making it as later. They announced it the day before. Yeah,
I was gonna ask because I thought, just watching from a distance, I thought Donovan Williams and Kendrick Davis were the leaders on the team and really stood out over anyone else. And I was kind of surprised to not see Donovan get the All-Star nod. But How do you think those two guys can get into the NBA after such great seasons in the G League?
Yeah, I think for Donovan, the shooting's the biggest thing. He shot 28% from 3, and that number has to get better. We talked about that a lot this year, and it was an adjustment for him, shooting more 3s than 2s. He had been a pull-up 2-point jump shooter throughout his life, high school, college, his first year in the pros, and our organizational view is that the guys who get to shoot jump shot 2s are Steph, Clay, and maybe Wiggins.
Yeah.
And if you want to make the NBA, you can't be one of those guys. So the compromise is that he would shoot more 3s because his idol and mentor was Tracy McGrady, and McGrady lived as that ISO scorer. So we had to really convince him that if you shoot those, no NBA team is going to want you. I thought he did a really good job throughout the year improving on that. But it probably impacted his 3-point percentage overall, and that's where one more year of growth, and it sucks because he broke his wrist, so he hasn't been able to work out in a month. But one more year of growth with his shooting would be the biggest step he could take for sure.
Yeah, so you're fully against those long 2s, right?
Yeah, it's just
it's kind of the modern game.
The modern game.
Yeah.
You take those out if you can take as a team 2 to 3 a game, especially in the G League. It's different if you have. Trying to think who shoots them right now. Shea.
Yeah. That's his shot. He's trying to get to that, but
yeah. And the rest of those guys don't. They know who can shoot those and who can't. And kind of our general rule here in Santa Cruz the last 3 years has been that if you're not going to be able to shoot those in the NBA, which you won't, don't shoot them here.
Yeah, that's a good game plan. What would you say after your first year as being a head coach was the hardest thing about becoming the head coach?
Oh, I don't know. I had a ton of fun, to be honest. I don't really think of anything that was really hard. Wish I didn't have to go through that. I had a great experience. I had an amazing staff that really helped keep not just myself organized, but our players as well. Great front office that put together a roster that was built to play the way we've tried to play, which is throw the ball ahead, keep the ball moving, maximize your spacing. And not to mention they're all good kids and they were willing to learn from day one, and that never ended. I don't know, I had an amazing experience. There was nothing about it that turned me off to the idea of just, I don't know about the NBA. That's a different beast, but kind of want to just do this in the G League for as long as possible.
Yeah, you seemed like just going into this year, I actually didn't know it was your first year being a head coach, and just watching you, you seemed really relaxed and like calm. So like, it seemed like you've been there, but you were an assistant coach. So how different is it being the head coach from the assistant?
Oh, huge difference.
Yeah, I bet.
And the first couple of weeks, I was a little skeptical. Like, man, I kind of wish I miss being an assistant. You work much closer with individual players and helping them build their skill set. But then we got into a game, and I got to you don't control nearly as much as a coach as what you feel like you would on the outside.
Yeah.
Then you get into the game, and you don't control 90% of it, but the 10% that you can control, it's really fun getting to do that. And I wouldn't trade that to be an assistant ever again.
Yeah,
at least in this league. NBA is different.
Yeah, you also had a really good staff, like you mentioned. Like Noel Hightower was someone that really, I noticed, really like made a lot of moves and stood out to me. How did you get him on your staff?
He was here last year. Seth, I don't know how he ended up getting here, but Noel was with the Pacers. He started at Lehigh, and then he was with the Pacers for a year. He ended up being an assistant. I don't know how Seth and our GM, David Fatoki, found him, but they found him, and he was a great asset for me, for sure. I put him in charge of doing the subs, which is what you would have seen him moving around the whole game.
Yeah, he was very animated and seemed like a guy I would definitely want to play for. But going to some more players on your guys' team, Jackson Rowe was someone that, I never heard of before the year started. He was actually a walk-on tryout. He walked on and tried out. So were you there for his walk-on tryout?
So it wasn't really a walk-on tryout. He was listed as a local tryout player, but we had agreed to sign him in like July. So he didn't even go to the tryout. Like he had always, and every team does that. You have a player who you're going to sign as a local tryout, but they're not going to the local tryout because you know that they're better than those kids, to be honest.
He's like, what, 6'8", maybe 6'6"?
Yeah.
He's got the tools. He can
shoot,
yeah,
he's strong, get to the rim.
Yeah. He really impressed me, and like...
Me too.
Yeah. But did you, you definitely know more than me, but did you see Jackson Rowe and Donovan Williams? Where did they just sign to?
Scarborough Shooting Stars.
So they're not on the Santa Cruz Warriors anymore?
So because the leagues don't coincide, next year they'll both, in theory, be back with us. Hopefully they'll be back with us.
Okay. So that confused me then. I don't know what the...
It's a summer league.
Okay, it's a summer league. Got it.
I think they started practice in April, but their games start in the next week, and it goes till about mid-August or early September.
Yeah, I was looking at the guys they signed. They signed some pretty interesting guys, like Kyrie Walker, some big name that I watched play in high school. He was like a high school star. Just some other names I recognize, but that's going to be cool for them.
That's an OVO team, so
OVO.
It's not the best right now. They're kind of in shambles. But, they won the league championship last year. They've been able to sign some really good players.
Wait,
because
what do you mean by OVO though? I want to know what that stands for. Are you talking about Drake?
I'm not going to say what Kendrick.
He's not.
Okay, so it is.
But it is Drake's OVO, yes.
Hey,
yeah, they've got the owl on their jersey.
That's really cool.
But yeah, so it was probably a lot cooler about a month ago.
Yeah, I know, I bet. But going back to some guys that you coached this year, before the year started, could you have predicted the impact that Brandon and Trace, also Lester and Guy, were able to make on the big league team? Because they made some huge impacts, especially Pods and Trace.
Yeah, especially summer league last year with Brandon. There was a question of, and I'm sure we all felt it, and he felt it too. Like, is he going to be able to play in the NBA?
I remember watching him in the summer.
And whether he'll never admit it, because he's one of his greatest assets is that he's always confident. But he must have been shook a little bit during that summer league run. The good news is that history tells you summer league is meaningless in terms of evaluating future successes or failures. Just tells you that in that snapshot of time, a guy plays well or doesn't. But no, I did not think he would have this type of success as a rookie.
Yeah, starting.
Trace the same. I thought, he obviously provided a different dimension of being a lob threat and a rim protector compared to the rest of that roster. But same, I expected that we would have those two way more than Brandon played one game, maybe Trace played
I remember
3.
opening night,
Yeah.
Pods. He looked like the best player on the court.
Oh, he was.
And he got elbowed in the
forgot about
eye.
that.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
he got stitched up, bandaged up, whatever. And he like begged to come back into the game.
That's-
Like I remember watching
yeah.
him, and I was just really surprised because it was a G League game, first game of the year, and then like a week later he gets called up, and then I see him on the Golden State Warriors with the Band-Aid on his
Mhm.
face, and that was just really cool.
Yeah, in that game, it really said a lot about Brandon. The first was just from a skill and intelligence standpoint that he's too good for the G League.
Yeah.
You could tell within by the end of the game. The second was, he gets hit in the face and he's begging to go back in. It's like, well, this guy loves playing. He loves competing, which
Yeah,
is
he just
another
wants
thing.
to win.
Yeah, he just wants to
Yeah.
win no matter where it is.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to get out of the G League, to be honest. All these first-round picks that get sent to the G League, no one wants to be there. I mean,
Mhm.
none of our players want to be in the G League. They want to be in the NBA. But Brandon, did he want to be there? Of course not. But the best way to get out of there is to not pout. It's to go
Yeah,
prove
of
that
course.
you're better than all these kids. And he did that, and that's why we'll never see him in Santa Cruz again.
Yeah, definitely. Just one last question on the Santa Cruz Warriors season. How important do you think it is to the Warriors organization, like, to win the G League championship?
It's definitely less important than it feels to us.
Yeah, I bet.
As coaches and players, when you're in the moment, like losing that Stockton game was a killer. But when you think about it from an organizational standpoint, the goal is to get a few players good enough to play for Golden State. And this year and last year too, because we had Guy last year, Lester last year. Like,
Mhm.
you could see the success of last year and then my first half of this year with helping those guys get better. That's what you're really trying to do. It'd be great to win a championship, but the goal is for your draft picks or maybe to find an unsigned free agent that can help you win NBA games.
Like a diamond in the rough,
For
kind of
sure.
like the Miami Heat always do.
For sure.
They always get those G League guys
Yeah.
and call them up, and then
We've-
they're playing in the finals
Yeah,
somehow.
and we've had a long success or story. Sorry, term. Had a long list of guys who have played in Santa Cruz and succeeded in the NBA. A lot of them have not been with the Warriors, whether it's Georges Niang,
Yeah.
Kendrick Nunn went to
Kendrick
Miami,
Nunn, yeah.
Seth Curry before all those guys.
Even Jordan Poole.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he came back for us.
Yeah.
Like, we've had some success with our own guys, but
Yeah.
there's been plenty of Santa Cruz players who have succeeded elsewhere. That's just been fun to try to be part of that history.
Yeah. Moving on to your basketball playing career, you played high school ball in San Diego, and I just wanted to ask, were you dominating the high school basketball scene in San Diego?
It was not.
I looked at your stats, and you were averaging like almost 15, and you looked pretty nice.
My junior year, I almost averaged 20,
Okay.
and then because our best player tore his ACL. His name is Joe Rayon. He ended up playing at St. Mary's.
Oh wow.
He tore his ACL my junior year, so I had to do more. Senior year, he came back, and he was better. So
Yeah.
he had the ball in his hands more, and our team was better because of it. But
Yeah,
dominate's definitely not the right word. No. I was
Making
good.
a name for
yeah,
yourself,
we never
you
won
know?
the championship. We lost
Yeah.
in it twice.
Oh wow.
So we were good, but we were really good, but we never got over the hump.
Yeah. Any guys you played against in high school that were like, who was the hardest person you've ever had to guard?
I know who the hardest person to score on was. That was Norman Powell.
Oh wow,
He's a San
Norman
Diego
Powell.
kid.
He's
Yeah.
not even known as a defender these days. I would say he's more of like a
No.
six-man, just light it up kind of.
Yeah, but if you're in the NBA, you can guard a college
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
even the worst defender in the NBA, Trae Young, like he's gonna guard kids in college and be more than capable.
Yeah.
NBA, just the level of talent offensively is just outrageous.
Yeah.
But yeah, Norman Powell's a San Diego guy.
He's kind of like stocky too, so I bet he was probably tough to
Yeah.
get by. Can't post him up. Yeah.
No, couldn't even get a shot off.
Yeah.
Of him. Trying to think who else. I think he's the only NBA guy from when I was there.
Oh, any names you ever played against that you kind of torched?
Never any
No?
names.
No?
Definitely no names.
Okay, well, so how did you get to playing at UC San Diego? Did they, offer you scholarship, or
Yeah,
did you?
so I went to University of San Diego,
Yeah.
not in the UC system like all you guys. Oh wait, yeah, I am because of Cal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
grad school though.
Okay.
But no, so I went to the private San Diego
Okay.
first, graduated there. I got recruited, got a scholarship. Didn't play very much there, which I understand because the kid playing my position was the school's all-time leading scorer. So,
Oh, wow.
You know, he was better than me, so he had to play.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good. So.
What was your game? Were you just a shooter?
Shooter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
Get find space and make a shot.
Yeah.
Couldn't really guard, couldn't really dribble, which makes passing a lot harder if you can't dribble to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I ended up at Cal, transferred
Yeah.
there for my last year.
Did you, when you walked on there, was it kind of like a Jackson Rose situation, like where you knew you were going to make it, or did you go in thinking like, I need to play my heart out and I need to?
No, I knew I was going to make
Okay.
it. It was agreed to, and I came up here really. My dad had done a year with the Warriors already, won the title. Wanted to feel what being part of that experience was like.
Yeah,
So,
that was a big year for you guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the second year was worse.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great until the way end.
Yeah, the way end.
73-9 and no title. But from my own standpoint, it was great. I'd go to a ton of their games. Once our season ended at Cal, I'd go to all their practices. So I knew at that point that I wanted to get into coaching. So that was the real reason I transferred up
Yeah.
here.
Was your
never
goal?
in with the idea of playing for Cal.
Oh, okay.
I
Was
wasn't
the
gonna be
goal
able
to
to-
make the NBA ever? Like,
Yeah, when I was like 12.
Okay, but then-
that dream faded quickly as I realized. Probably when I played against Norman Powell. To be
Wow.
honest.
He gave you
Realized,
that
this
wake-up call,
guy's-
yeah.
I got no chance.
Oh,
So by high school, I knew I'm going to try to play in college, and then if I want to stay around this game, it's not going to be as a player. So I might
Yeah.
as well figure out how to coach.
You played. Jaylen Brown was on your team in college.
Yeah.
Did you know he was going to be this good? Like
No.
back then?
No. Because he couldn't shoot it this well
Yeah.
in college. He's worked a ton on his game. He's gotten so much better, so much more skilled.
Mhm.
He always had the size, and I think he always had the personality that could succeed in the NBA, being able to handle the pressure. But the question was if he could shoot it well enough. And I think going to Boston was super fortunate for him, because there's organizations in the NBA that really know how to help players get better, and there's some that don't. And a lot of these guys are at the, it's the luck of the draw. Do you go somewhere that's going to help you or not? And going to Boston was the best thing that could have ever happened to him.
Yeah, they're a pretty good organization. But with Jaylen, the Warriors also kind of agree with you that they still don't think he can shoot that well. Like the last time the Warriors played the Celtics, the Draymond thing where he was just kind of letting him shoot, and then the Warriors end up losing by 40 or something. But hopefully they change that game plan.
I asked about that. They decided that in about 15 minutes before the game. It's like,
Yeah.
let's just try something. All these dudes can shoot it so well. Like,
I
let's
think
just
they
see
might
what
have been on a
happens.
losing streak too, or
No,
something.
they'd won a
Oh,
ton. They were
won.
super hot. It was
Yeah.
the way end of a road trip, and they knew they were flying back after the game.
Yeah,
It was
that's
like,
what it was. Yeah.
like, let's just see what happens, and it didn't work. But
Yeah.
to be fair, it's borderline impossible to guard the Celtics if Porzingis is playing.
Yeah,
They just have
that's
all
true.
these guys that can make threes. There's nowhere to help.
Mm-hmm. Derek White has become one of the best
Yeah.
players I've watched. But you actually had
I had a quick little
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So I had realized in doing research for this, I remembered one guy played AAU ball with Chase Martin.
You played AAU with Chase?
I played AAU with Chase. Yeah, and I wanted to ask because I saw that the years lined up where you played for Kwanzaa. I wanted to ask how that experience was.
Konzo's great.
Yeah.
Just great leader of young men. Always made sure everyone felt like that he was valuing their. What am I trying to say? He just made you feel welcomed and a part of the program.
Mhm.
Even if it was me, like I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
He'd always reach out once a month, check in on your personal life. I always just respected that he was trying to connect with all of his guys and keep an eye out for them. And we had a lot of success that year. Made the tournament. I mean, we should have had more. But we had two guys get hurt before the first game, and we were the 4th seed, and Hawaii just destroyed us. But it's hard when you lose 2 starters. And it was like the day before and then during warm-ups is when the 2 guys got hurt. So I saw Chase running around. He must have been 12 at that point.
Yeah, I think we were in 8th grade, 7th, 8th,
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th grade, around
Yeah.
there. And now you're talking about how he really made you feel like family. How important for for coaching is that it's more than just a business where you're subbing these guys so they're good or not. Like, how important is it to really include everyone like it's more than just basketball?
I think it's extremely important because especially in the NBA, college now too, it's a business. But what makes a great team great isn't just a lot of talent, it's the ability to trust your teammates and to trust the situation the staff is putting you in. And the best teams just always like each other.
Yeah.
At some point, the best teams stop liking each other.
Yeah.
It's shown throughout history, whether it was the Lakers or, I guess, the Warriors.
Yeah,
The Bulls by the end.
Yeah.
But you have to have supreme talent and to have done that for a long time before those relationships start to fracture. Because at some point, every great team walked into their locker room and was excited to see each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And you can't really control it as a coach. You can try to put your organization and try to build your culture as best as you can to help facilitate that, but it's ultimately on the players. So it's where we were lucky this year. Our guys all got along really well. They would always hang out off the court. You need that to overachieve is maybe the right way of putting it.
Yeah, we talked about on our last podcast about the culture in New York.
Yeah.
With Brunson and all the Villanova guys and how important that was, and we see that these guys aren't all superstars, but they seem that chemistry puts them over the edge, and I feel like that's such an important thing, and having that kind of family connection. And
for sure.
Yeah.
And the chemistry only gets you so far. It's still always about who the best player is and who has the most talent, but if those things are equal, it'll be about who has the better chemistry.
True. We can move on to your coaching career where you really have, made a big name for yourself. So you were a Cal graduate assistant in 2016-17, and then you worked with the Spurs. What did you do with the Spurs?
Video intern, so helped break down film for coaching staff and was on the floor as a crash dummy for players in their individual and group workouts.
Okay. How do you get into that?
Nepotism. If you ask me, how did I get any of my career? Nepotism. Whether that's, I know it's not fair, but it's the only way I can tell the truth. My dad and R.C. Buford, their GM, and obviously Popovich all knew each other from his playing days there, and that allowed me to get an interview there, and it wasn't even really an interview. It was more hang out with their video room for a day and don't be a dickhead to make sure that we like you and will hire you. And I guess I succeeded in that.
Yeah. Do you think because me and Sam both are interested in trying to do something in basketball, whether that's coaching, player development, anything like that. Do you think it is do you need those connections like you have to get into that business, or is there another?
I don't think
it helps.
It for sure helps. The best thing to do, and this is not good news for either of you, is to be a former player.
Yeah.
Even college, because most of these NBA teams now, they want, and I think I would have been phased out of this too, they want former players that are either super quick guards that can score and pressure the ball defensively, or 6'7" wings or bigs to play and practice against their younger players.
Yeah.
Because
it looks
there's
we're out of that.
It's
but what about the
tough.
coaching?
That's the route to get to coaching.
Oh, you
have
start
to do
the video.
Yeah, you start in the video room because you're basically coaches' assistants. You're assistants to the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
And now it's become way less about what you're capable of as a coach. In fact, it has nothing to do with what you can do as a coach. It has everything to do with how can you help our players and the assistants in their workouts. So most of these, Golden State are, outside of one person, our entire video room is former college, G League, or NBA players.
Wow, and wasn't that where Gary Payton was before he got onto the team? No.
No, he asked if he could have a video room spot, and it was GP's the best, but he was being a little dramatic at that point.
Okay, I've heard that story many times.
He did ask, if I don't make it, can I be in the video room? He was being dramatic, he could have gone back to the G League or played overseas, but really, he was just trying to make a team. So
Yeah.
he wanted to show I'll do whatever
True,
it takes
true.
to stay here.
I read that you were a player development guy with him and Marquise Chris as well, but Gary Payton, what did you do to develop his game? Because he's really become a huge part of the Warriors over the last few years.
It was a group effort for sure. It was definitely can't say how I helped him.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest thing is that he spent 5 or 6 years in the G League, so he came to us already really knowing how to play. The one thing he just needed help getting better at was just making shots. The real reason he got better is that he just put in a ton of work to improve as a shooter. I just happened to be there to give him a couple tips throughout the way, and then I came here and other people in Golden State picked up the slack and kept working with him. So it was a very, very small part of his success. But really it's because he worked and grinded both in the gym that summer and as a G League player for the previous 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, he seems like someone that, puts all the work in that needs to be put in. Even if he's struggling as a shooter, he's going to do everything else and, defend the best guy and dive on the floor for loose balls and all that.
Energy provider, for sure.
Yeah. With that being said, I think we're going to take just a short break and then we'll get back into it. And we're back, and just wanted to get into some questions, before we move on, about the Spurs. What was the best thing you learned from Popovich?
I'd say from the organization as a whole, because video room, you get to talk to Pop a little bit. You get to be at his practices every day, but you're not necessarily spending hours and hours of one-on-one time. But I'd say from the Spurs as a whole, which ultimately falls on Pop, you learn how to be a professional. There's a transition from being a player to being a coach that requires some harsh truths being brought to you in terms of knowing how to be a little more, what's the right term I'm looking for? A little more buttoned up and not, players, you're there for a couple hours to play, and coaches, you're there to work longer days. And I thought they really helped me learn to, just kind of how to conduct yourself as a coach, make sure your work is not just on time but early, make sure it's high quality. Find the fine line of building relationships with players without becoming just their friend. And you can be their friend too, but making sure that there's a understanding. A business, but there's an understanding too that you can be their confidant, but you were their coach still.
Yeah. So just an interesting question I thought of. Would you be interested in taking over as head coach, after your dad steps down of the Warriors? Do you think that's in your game plan?
I don't think that's in the plan. No.
Oh, okay.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
I had never thought of that, but no. I don't think that's a possibility.
They might be thinking about it, you never know.
It would be a surprise, but
yeah.
I guess you shouldn't say never.
I mean, your dad really started the whole dynasty of the Warriors before him. They had a solid team, and Mark Jackson, of course, did what he needed to do, but Steve really took him to the next level.
You could say that, but you could also just say that Steph
became one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, and he helped him for sure, but coaches are only as good as their players, and Steph becoming a superstar when my dad took over helped him a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Which he'll admit. He built, the dynasty is because of Steph.
Yeah.
And then Draymond and Clay.
Yeah.
It's not because of my dad or anyone else in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Did you think that the Warriors would become this good when he took over? You saw your dad get the job, and what was your thought process? Do you think they could win a championship, let alone 3?
4.
4, my bad.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought much about it, to be honest. He was thinking he was going to take the next job. I was in San Diego at that point in college, and our whole family was still in San Diego. Actually, my sister was at Berkeley at that point. She was a freshman. And then the Warriors job came up, and he felt like it was a better fit. And, he's a West Coast guy, so getting to stay out here and be close to home was important. So we were thinking more along those lines than, maybe they can win a championship, especially because they had been a 6 seed. He knew he was coming into a team with some talent, but I don't think the idea was like, we can just going to go there and help them win a championship right away.
Yeah, I think the year before he came, they lost in Game 7 to the Clippers, and
but still round
it was
one.
round one,
It was
but
a
it was
great
a great series. I remember that. But the Clippers were a good team. They had some guys.
But I think I remember one of his quotes in his press conference was the goal is just to give yourself a chance every year and make the playoffs.
Yeah.
He didn't go in there with, hey, we're going to come in here and win multiple championships and
Yeah.
build a dynasty.
That's just what he does, though. He's that guy. Wherever he
Apparently.
goes, winning
I
happens,
mean,
it seems. Yeah.
It has been the case.
Yeah.
Hard to argue that one.
Yeah. You brought up some stuff about Steph, Clay, Draymond. Who would you say out of those three are you the closest with?
I don't know. Decently close with all three in terms of when you see them, you talk about how each other's kids are doing
Yeah.
or what you're up to. But I'm not close enough to any of the three that were ever in text communications and things like that.
Yeah. Give it a few years. We'll see.
That's more of, that's what you find when you have your own players.
Yeah.
So that's all of the Santa Cruz guys have much more of that.
Yeah, I bet. Any stories about Steph when, you were with the Warriors that you saw just like the work or the leadership, or when he came down to Santa Cruz to, get some rehab work in? Any
that
cool
was
stories?
great.
Yeah.
So we went up to San Francisco to work out with Steph this March, I think. He sprained his ankle and he needed to scrimmage before he could play for the Warriors. He's such an incredible guy.
Yeah.
He's chatting with all of our dudes before he lets a couple of them hop into his workout or warm up, I guess. It's still a workout. You see him, it's 20 minutes, and it's full speed, and he's in a full sweat. The other three hoops were getting shots up, and then I can't remember who, but at least two of our guys were working with him. And other superstars would probably be like, "It's my court, get out."
Yeah.
And he was happy to have those guys with him.
Wow.
And then, and then it ends. He's thankful for everyone. Just stays out there for like the next half hour, just talking to dudes.
Yeah.
He's incredible. He's really, I guess he's 2 of 2 because Tim Duncan was similar, but a superstar who doesn't act like they're a superstar.
Mm-hmm. He's very humble.
Super humble.
Yeah.
So we're all lucky that he's been a part of the Warriors the last 15 years.
Yeah. Was he? Did you guys scrimmage when he
We
was?
did.
And how did that go?
Well, Jimmy Witt would tell you that
Jimmy
he
Witt,
was.
yeah.
I'm not the dude for Steph to feel good against.
Oh, okay. So he was trying to lock him up. Huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Steph wanted that. He didn't
Yeah.
want to. It
Yeah, of
wasn't.
course,
Otherwise,
yeah.
we'd have the video guys play against
Yeah.
him. But I actually remember Jimmy doing a pretty good job on him.
Yeah. He's a
but-
good defender for
yeah,
sure.
But
Yeah.
it's Steph.
It's that.
It's Steph.
I remember Clay also. Didn't Clay come
Clay was
down
down
one
here
time?
for, like,
And
a month.
I remember seeing videos of him in a scrimmage, and he hit like a deep 3-game winner or something. So who do you think did better in the scrimmage, like with the Santa Cruz team,
Oh,
Steph or
it's-
Clay?
It's definitely not fair to compare because I think we had 10 scrimmages with Clay.
Yeah. Okay. So
Clay
it's a
would
lot.
come down here if Golden State was out of town. 'Cause he didn't play until about January. When they were out of town in November, December, he would come practice with us.
Yeah.
And, he'd come down here for 4 days at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd probably scrimmage 10 times with us. And there was one where he was terrible, and there were probably 6 where he was on fire.
Lighting it up, yeah.
So.
But that was when he was coming back from that, huge injury, right?
Mhm.
And then so you guys actually prepared him to, go on that big run and win the championship. So props to you guys for getting him ready for that.
Yeah,
But
that's it's what the minors are for.
Yep.
It's develop your young guys, help injured guys get rehabbed, and then I wish we could take credit for the championship. But,
Yeah.
again, not really.
a little credit,
Sure.
something.
If you want to give it to me,
Yeah.
I can't argue.
You were
but
there, right? In Boston, you were there?
I was there.
How was that atmosphere?
Incredible.
Yeah.
There's nothing, I guess, other than maybe the birth of your child. And a wedding. There's nothing better than winning a championship.
Yeah. Do you think moving on to, Draymond, just to talk about all the big three, do you think every successful team needs a voice or, an enforcer like Draymond has been for the Warriors all these years?
You need a voice for sure.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if you need an enforcer, but you need a voice who will hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Be a leader. And what Draymond does is he brings competitiveness to our group more than anything. Steph's ultra competitive, Clay's ultra competitive. and Draymond's ultra competitive, and I think that for a long time was contagious to the rest of the group. Maybe that's unfair because we've always just had monster competitors in the program. But yes, and also Draymond he doesn't necessarily get the defensive credit he deserves. He's single-handedly can be a defense on his own.
Is he the best defender of all time in your opinion? You know, a lot of people would say that.
I don't know.
It's hard to say. There's been a lot of guys.
I'll side with all the other people.
Yeah.
The people who say that, sure. Yeah, but no one at his size has ever been able to single-handedly be a defense.
He played a 5 at like 6'5".
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's probably the right way of putting it.
Yeah.
Just like he's a defensive system by himself, and unlike some of the other dudes who are 7 feet tall and can do it, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
6'6".
Do you think it's important for a guy on the team that's not, the best player to be that voice, or do you think it should be the best player? Because like I noticed on the Timberwolves, it seems like Ant is the leader and the voice, but in my opinion, I think they need another guy. Like Mike Conley's kind of their vet that like is probably their voice in the locker room, but I think they need somebody else to like, help Ant be the leader and not have to do it all, be the best player and be the leader at the same time. What do you think?
I don't know what their situation is, but from what you hear, it's that Conley is that guy.
Yeah.
He's trying to help Ant be a leader. And they've had a successful year, whether they lose in 6, lose in 7, or win. They've had a great year. It's hard to beat a champion.
Yeah,
It's hard to beat
hard.
Jokic. That guy's the best player in the league right now.
Yeah, for sure he is. The Warriors actually did it in 2022.
We did.
They were very hurt.
They were.
And
They were not quite the same team as
they didn't have Jamal or MPJ.
And they didn't
have KCP.
They hadn't traded for KCP. That was what put them over the edge. That trade
was
was
a big trade for them.
Incredible for them, and it's funny that you look back now, people were criticizing it at the time.
Yeah, KCP was actually getting a lot of hate before he went to Denver. But
yeah, people were crushing them. Like, oh, Bill Barton and Monte Morris, like they're giving up a lot. But more, I'm not saying that to rip on anyone. It's more you don't know how these moves are going to work out, and it's hard to be very judgmental at the beginning because oftentimes it's always all speculation. And that move ended up winning them a title. It helped unlock Jokic. It helped unlock Aaron Gordon too, just having those two together with shooting, and now
they kind of have like the perfect 5-man lineup.
Yeah, they're the best in the league.
The only weakness might be their bench, but
Yeah, everyone has a weakness. It's impossible to be perfect, but it looks like they're going to win another one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But what do you think the Warriors can do in this offseason to get back on that level? Because it seemed like the last 2 years are just not on the level of Denver or a real contender. What do you think they can do? Or you guys can do, I should say.
I don't know. I'm starting to question what I'm allowed to say.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I bet. The whole Clay contract thing will, hopefully he comes back. I'm sure they're trying to do their best to work that out.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if he came back. Now I'm starting to wonder what I'm allowed to even say and what I can't say in terms of all these other teams. Definitely, I know. From a league standpoint, I'm not allowed to talk about free agency. But it'd be great to build a roster to get back to that point.
Maybe you don't have to answer if you can't, but do you think that the Warriors should, focus only on this timeline with Steph and, all these guys getting older? Do you think they need to just double down and go get someone that can help them now, or do you think it's smarter to kind of keep the young guys? And I don't know if you are allowed to answer this again, but
I can't say any names.
Yeah,
I know
no
that,
names.
I mean, if the situation arises where you can get a superstar to put with Steph, it's hard to not do that.
Yeah.
Even at his age, because there's only so many chances you get to win. Even if you do everything right as an organization, look at the Bulls last 30 years. They haven't won since Michael.
Yeah.
They've drafted really well when they've had the lottery. They had Derrick Rose, and then you have bad luck.
Yeah.
And I think I know they haven't made it to a finals. They made it to one Eastern Finals in 26 years. So if you have one of the top 5-10 players in the league, that's your chance. You need to win then, because this league's just so hard to win, and it's getting even harder.
I agree.
But you know, it's probably a pipe dream. It'd be great if somebody became available that would push us over the top as a star, but
yeah,
you know, feels unlikely.
Yeah. So you, moving on to, you know, just some cool experiences you've had. You were 11 years old when Steve retired, and he won in his final year, he won a championship with the Spurs. What do you remember about, you know, that feeling, seeing your dad win a championship?
I mean,
Saw him win a few, probably, yeah. Nothing new.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, you kind of feel like it's part of your own thing too, even though I had nothing to do with any of it.
You were there, you were involved.
I was there, but yeah, you feel, oh, I was involved. I wasn't involved. He played in the Nets, the 2003 with the Spurs beat the Nets. He played in that series. He had a great game in New Jersey, whether it was 4 or 5. He made a couple big shots to help them win. So that was awesome.
Yeah, he's done that a few times.
That's true.
Yeah.
But he didn't, he wasn't playing very much for, honestly, like 4 years. He had his good run in Chicago. And then when he was with the Spurs, he really didn't get to play that much.
Yeah.
And his final year, 2003, he got to play because someone got hurt.
Yeah.
And then they got healthy, so he wasn't playing in the playoffs. He had a really big game in Dallas. He made four threes in the fourth that helped them. They were down 15 or something. They came back and won, and they made it to the finals. Those memories are really cool. Like seeing him out there on the court helping his team win, and I could understand it at that age better than the Chicago years. That was really fun.
So during the Chicago years, you were like, do you remember the Chicago years much?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I remember being at the United Center.
Okay.
I remember being in the locker room on a couple of times, but no, it's all fuzzy. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
There's no clear memory, but definitely enough of. I didn't appreciate it, of course. I was 4 and 5, but at least enough memories to say, oh, I saw Michael Jordan play. I saw NBA Finals games.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, once you got a little older, Steve becomes on other teams. Did you ever get a chance to meet Michael Jordan?
I met him at a golf tournament 10 years ago, and it was the only time I've ever been intimidated. I've been lucky enough. I've met a lot of different NBA players, and me and MJ was different. It was they do that Tahoe golf tournament in the summer, and there's this clubhouse, and there's a ton of famous athletes in that thing. Like Dan Marino's in it every year. There's all these.
I know Steph goes to
Steph's
it every
in it
year.
now.
Yeah.
There's all these dudes. Actually, Steph was there that year too. There's all these dudes that played quarterback or pitched in the MLB.
Yeah.
And they're on one side of the clubhouse, and then Michael has the entire other side of the clubhouse to himself with security. It's like God, he's
just
even
on top of those. That's just
like
crazy.
all these superstar athletes, and it's like, hey, Michael wants you to come talk to him.
You think you could, keep up with him in a golf match? Do you think you could play with him? Are you solid out there?
No.
No,
I've broken 90 once,
okay.
but no, and not to mention Michael's the ultimate competitor. Like if I had to golf against Michael, hell no.
Yeah.
He would just talk so much trash.
I was gonna say he might
get
do
into my
some
head for sure.
yapping. Yeah.
My dad would beat him. Although
Okay.
with his back, he hasn't played very much recently. My dad, I think, is like a 5 handicap. He is.
Oh wow.
It's hand-eye.
Yeah.
He can play.
Maybe baseball with Michael?
Yeah.
Definitely not. I mean, even the fact he even played in the minors and that makes him one of the best at the time in the world. That guy's just an elite athlete.
Yeah. Did you ever play baseball growing up?
Up to Little League.
Okay.
I played like 6th grade.
But you were set on basketball.
I knew it was my best sport.
Yeah.
I stopped playing in San Diego because none of my friends played, to be honest. Trying to think, played flag football instead.
Okay.
And did tackle in San Antonio. I was like a 9-year-old. That was enough for me. Texas. Played some volleyball in middle school.
You did it all.
Yeah.
You did it all.
But basketball was always my favorite sport for sure.
Yeah. Where did you grow up? Because with your dad being in the NBA, I'm just assuming that you probably moved around a lot, or did you stay in one spot and just let him kind of go?
I was born in Cleveland, lived there for like 3 weeks. Definitely don't remember anything. Then he got traded to Orlando, finished the year there, so a few months. And then he signed with the Bulls. So I lived in Chicago for 5 years until he got traded to the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived in San Antonio for 5 years. And then he retired, so we moved to San Diego. So I was in San.
Wow.
I've been in California, other than the intern year in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Been here for 20 years now.
San Diego's a spot to be, huh?
It's the
I'm
best.
jealous.
It's
yeah.
the best. I love. I mean, Santa Cruz is amazing
It
too.
is, yeah.
San Diego's just like a bigger version.
Yeah. What would you say, if you had to pick, is your most amazing basketball experience that you've ever witnessed or, been a part of? That's a tough one. You've probably seen a lot.
I've been to some good games.
Mm-hmm.
You always just think immediately of different championship runs.
Yeah.
15 was great because it was the first one.
Yeah, I bet that one felt amazing.
Yeah, but then 17 was redemption, so equally as fun.
Yeah.
Great feeling of relief. It's always a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first feeling you have. 22 was really sweet too because you didn't really think we'd ever be able to get back.
Yeah, that one was my favorite, just watching, on the TV,
Mm-hmm.
2022 one. Were you there at Steph's Game 4, where
Mm-hmm.
you were there? Oh,
That was special.
Yeah, tell us anything that you heard or saw close to that game, because that was probably my favorite game of all time.
Well, I was in the locker room, so while I was
Yeah.
in the building, I was still watching on TV.
Okay.
So I don't really have, you could just hear the crowd underneath it.
Yeah.
But yeah, saw the same thing you guys did. That's the only downside of the bus.
Yeah.
I was in the locker room the whole time.
Oh, well, I'm sure you were kind of close to Steph that day. He really locked into a different beast. That was something I've only seen a few players do, and he really proved himself. Do you always know he had that in him since the moment you met him, or did he have to kind of prove that to you?
Oh, as long as you watch him play, you
Yeah.
can see that he's an ultimate competitor. We've been lucky in the playoffs that he gets going a lot, and throughout the history of this run, if Steph is going, you rarely lose.
Yeah.
Like the games he had 35 and over, I don't know, we might have lost one in the 6 years. What do we think? 6 finals? Yeah. In those 6 runs, we rarely lost if Steph had it,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell from the beginning he had it that night, so you feel pretty confident that you're going to end up winning.
Yeah. What is your favorite NBA arena?
From a nostalgic standpoint, the United Center.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I love Chicago.
Yeah.
Indiana's really cool. That's a from an architectural standpoint.
Yeah, that's a basketball
it's a field
town,
house.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's windows up at the top.
Oh wow.
Like brick walls throughout. Love those two. Sacramento's actually really great.
Love it. Love it.
From a fan experience.
Yeah.
Oracle was the best.
Oracle was
Oracle's-
amazing. Yeah.
Missed that place.
MSG. What do you think of MSG?
Garden's cool.
Yeah.
I've only been once in the NBA somehow. Because the COVID year we got canceled, and then the following year in front of no fans, I was working for Santa Cruz in the bubble. Then I've been in the G League ever since that. So
Yeah.
I've
So
only
you were
been
in the
once.
bubble.
I was in the bubble.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Any crazy stories about the bubble?
No, it was so
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, wow.
It was the perfect amount of time. The NBA one went way too long. Those guys were stir crazy. But
Yeah.
we were there in January 2021 or February 2021, I guess. There for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Played 15 games, and just really fun.
Was it the same bubble as the NBA played in?
Similar setup, but not as big a property. But it was
In Orlando though?
yeah, it was in
Okay.
Orlando. Like it was
Right.
the same.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the same arenas you
Okay.
played in, but they had the high quality hotels open to the public at that point.
Yeah.
So we were in. It was still a great setup, but none of us were in 2-bedroom suites, penthouses
Yeah.
like those dudes had been in. But on the flip side, we didn't have to spend 3 months there, 4 months there if you're the
Yeah.
Lakers and Heat. So it was an easy trade-off.
Yeah. You've always been a part of, the NBA because of your dad, and, you've always been around it. But becoming your own, person and becoming like a head coach and assistant coach and all that, did you see any issues with social media? I heard that you needed to delete social media. What do you think social media does to, some coaches or players? Because everybody on social media gets hate these days, and it's just hard to avoid it unless you just kind of get rid of it.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Just if you don't want to read negativity about yourself, if you're kind of in the public eye at all, then just don't have it.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to avoid it. And when you read something, you know that it's not, sometimes people have a point, but for the most part that it's not true.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to not be upset about it.
Of course,
be like, I'm going to respond to that.
Yeah, Do you think your life has been, happier and just, a better life since you've deleted it?
Yeah. I still have Instagram, but just Twitter.
Yeah, obviously,
yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, nice.
And it's not like, I'm sure I could have just downloaded a month later. It was only when the news was coming out that I knew I'd get some backlash of, being a Nepo baby and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and it's, who am I to argue? It's
yeah,
true.
It set you up nice, so you
It's
can't
true.
be too mad.
I can't complain at all. I've been very blessed.
Yeah. So in the locker room before games, are you on the aux? Who's playing the music in the locker room?
In the locker room, it's either one of the players or maybe Michael Salome, who's kind of a hybrid role of the front office, but working for the staff as well. Coaches will play a few songs at some point towards as the game gets closer. Sometimes that's Noel, sometimes that's Sal again. Our director of equipment, Kyle Hunter. But we try to have some good energy in there.
Yeah,
During practice, we always have music playing.
Oh,
That's most of the time, Noel.
Okay. If next year, before a game, they go up to you and they tell you, this is your game to play all the music, what are you playing? What artists are you playing?
At the moment, I'm playing Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
I'm going back through the catalog.
So we see what side you're on.
Not to say I don't like Drake.
No, I love Drake too.
But it was just kind of a reminder because Kendrick hasn't put out much in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
One album. It's been a good way of remembering. Forgot how talented he was.
Yeah.
But I like pop. I like country. I like rap.
Okay, so
I like Taylor Swift. So
okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Just.
Your wife put you onto the Taylor Swift?
It's probably made me a bigger fan, but I was listening to 1989 before I knew her. So,
so do you only have do you have one kid or do you have
one
multiple?
kid?
One kid, and how old?
She is 17 months. Her name's Eleanor.
Okay.
She's walking now, so
that's beautiful.
That's being
beautiful.
dad's the best.
Yeah. So has that being a dad been like the best thing ever? I assume. Yeah.
Every day, it's just so much fun, even when they're throwing a fit.
Yeah, I bet.
It helps that she sleeps. That's what I've learned is the difference. Though, if your kid doesn't sleep, then your life sucks.
Yeah.
But since she sleeps well, you can handle all the stuff that's thrown at you during the day.
Nice. And you and your wife have a good connection where you even it out and stuff. I bet.
For sure.
But how did you guys meet?
We met in San Diego.
Okay.
She has no connection to San Diego. She's from Indianapolis, or a little outside Indianapolis. She went to Indiana University, and she was visiting San Diego with her college friend from IU, who was my high school friend from San Diego. And we met at a pregame. Steve was there for the week. It was their first night. Hit it off.
Nice.
Ended up spending the rest of the week together, and then we did long distance.
Yeah.
For 4 years.
I'm in that right now. So
Really?
Yeah, I'm in that.
Where's
I'm from
yours?
Sacramento, so yeah.
That's long distance.
It's like 3 hour
not-
drive.
Yeah.
I go back a lot, but it's going good.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite part of living, in Santa Cruz? It's such a small town, but it's really fun to be in.
Oh man, there's too many things to name.
Yeah.
I love that it's not foggy here.
Yeah.
I love that I can walk to the beach and be there in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
As we've gotten to know more people, I love the relationships you build with people, and maybe that one you get everywhere, but love the natural beauty of this town. You can be in the forest like we are now.
Yeah.
10 minutes away from the beach. Great restaurants in town.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you actually what's your favorite spot to go eat? Me and Sam love going to the taquerias. My favorite's Las Palmas. What's yours?
I got Hacienda.
Okay.
Someone told me to go to Hacienda.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm a snob because I'm from San Diego,
Yeah.
so I find that the taco and burrito scene here is a little.
All right, we are back for the final part of this interview, and we're going to talk about some baseball. It's
Yeah,
all
I
you.
just wanted to ask, so you're a Cubs fan. How would that, growing up, how would that feel, that 2016 chip feel?
Yeah,
Were you,
that
Oh,
must
it
have
was
been
amazing.
yeah.
Such a relief too, just not having to have the curse anymore.
Yeah.
Became a Cubs fan. Obviously, grew up in Chicago when I was very young, and first game at Wrigley, Sammy Sosa's up, bottom of the ninth. They're down a couple runs, and he
Breaks
hits
the
a bomb, bounces onto Waveland, out of the stadium, bounces onto Waveland, and shatters a window across the street.
Yeah.
Place goes nuts, and I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah.
And also, if you've ever been to Wrigley, it's got some magic to it when you're in there. So that obviously helps influence a little kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a Cubs fan ever since.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the changes in baseball, because they made these with the pitch clock and all that, and I was thinking of like the comparison to basketball and how I feel in baseball it worked really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's some potential rule changes, whether it be with charges or the new reviews and all that, and what your thoughts are and how that could like even translate over, or any new rules that you were thinking that could be implemented,
Yeah.
or even were they in football where they were testing out potential rules in other leagues, if they would even try out like in the G League, and then just thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's what the G League is for. You know, we have a couple different rules we try out every year. I think what baseball has succeeded in is having the game flow better.
Yeah.
With the pitch clock and not being allowed to step out of the box. And they've tried to keep a little more action in the game, which they don't really get to control because dudes are still throwing 100 and they're going to strike plenty of guys out. But they've at least kept the flow better, and I think that's probably... I know we've done that in the G League with one free throw for 2 points.
Oh, yeah.
It really keeps the game moving. And that would be the question of... And I don't think there's much momentum for it right now, but if the NBA wanted to speed the game up, that would be the way.
Yeah.
So our games are just about 2 hours every time.
Mm-hmm.
I think an NBA game's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's literally just free throws, and timeouts are longer.
Yeah.
Same, 48 minutes on the clock.
I don't know how I feel about the 1 for 2 free throws, just because it's every point matters, especially in the playoffs. Like if you make one of two and that's only 1 point, and then you end up losing by 1 point. I don't know how I feel about that one, but I do think that the NBA should think about shortening the amount of time they take to challenge and review plays, because like the MLB has that clock. I think they should have a clock where the refs need to make the final call within 1 minute, because sometimes it just takes 10 minutes and then the whole flow of the game's lost. And what do you think about that?
I think that's another... I mean, we don't have a clock or anything in the G League, but there are fewer things that the refs are allowed to review in the G League, and I think that's part of helping speed the game up.
Yeah.
That's probably the better way to go. As a coach, I love the fact that I can challenge a play if I think the ref missed a call. So it's hard for me to get on the side of wanting to eliminate that. But admittedly, and the NBA did this one a couple years ago, you watch the end of a college game and the ball goes out of bounds and everyone's signaling to review, and they review it. And then it happens 10 seconds later and they review it again. And it probably happens 3 times in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas the NBA finally said, we're not reviewing this, you have to challenge it if you want it reviewed. And that could be maybe just the best way of doing it. Get rid of all these reviews and automatic reviews, and say if you want to challenge it, you get 2 challenges a game. We're not going to automatically review anything anymore, even flagrants.
Yeah, I remember watching you on the sideline, kind of talking to your guys on the bench and them turning the computer the other way so you could see the plays. So you were like, should I challenge? Should I challenge?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really cool. But something that me and Sam have talked about on our radio show a few times was that we are debating on if we think the NBA should take out the charge because of how many injuries there are. But, it's such an important part to the game because of the defense. We don't know what the defense, could do if the charge got taken out. So what do you think on the charge?
It wasn't even necessarily taking it out, but I see watching these playoff games, these guys, you're standing in front of this huge athlete jumping 40 inches in the air.
Yeah.
You're just standing there and it's collapsing every single time. And I swear it's It's like, this doesn't seem safe, and obviously taking out the charge, Pajemski, that him being charge leader.
Well, I think it's I think you could take out the weak side defender charge.
Yeah.
But if you're guarding one-on-one, I think it's still fine to take a charge. Those are never the ones where guys get hurt on.
Yeah.
It's always when someone's going up from a dunk and somebody from the other side of the floor cuts them off.
We were thinking about the weak side one. Like we thought about Steph's injury. When was that? In 2020. Yeah, broke the wrist. Yeah, and that was all because he's trying to take a charge.
For sure.
And like we see that a lot. And like he said in the playoffs, like I remember the other day watching the Pacers and the Knicks. Like it seemed like every 30 seconds someone new was on the floor holding their wrist, holding their arm, something. So.
It would they would need to have a give and take though, because playing, and it's gotten a little easier since the All-Star break. They've stopped calling as many fouls.
Yeah.
But, all of the rules in the NBA right now are tailored to benefiting the offense.
Yeah.
So getting rid of the charge, while I agree, I think it would be, I actually hope they do it, but there needs to be a give and take. They would need to allow the defense to be more physical, to have some type of give and take.
Yeah, because the offense is at a crazy.
It's at an all-time high.
Multiple 70-point games in a week. Like, I think the NBA is going to try and do something with the defense, but it's tough.
It's before February, you literally couldn't guard any. You weren't allowed to touch people.
Yeah.
They've done a great job by fixing that mid-year, and it's gotten better. So if you took away the charge, you would just need to allow something else, and I don't really know what that would be.
Yeah, I know.
It was wild how seamless it was. Like, I listen to my podcast, they always talk about that switch over, like you're talking after February, that, I mean, everyone knew it. Everyone knew it was happening, and it wasn't...
But not nobody, they didn't say anything. You just kind of realized after the first week, like, you play a few games, and we didn't have it in the G League. I didn't notice any change. It kind of felt like they'd been that way all year, to be honest. It didn't feel like
they weren't calling like the ticky-tack.
The dumb stuff.
Yeah, I kind of thought so too.
The stuff that you would laugh at someone if they did in a pickup game.
In the NBA, they kind of call more, like, especially early in the year, like you said.
So I'm wondering if our league from the beginning was, our refs were told, like, if you think people would laugh about it in a pickup game, don't call it. But the NBA, it's like...
That's funny.
Like, in the NBA, it's all this dumb stuff where you just, like, put your arm out and get a foul. And, you created all the contact.
Manipulating the game.
Manipulating, the rule book.
Yeah.
Like, why are we allowing this? And it seems like they've done a good job cracking down, but there's always... This is the other part of the NBA. There's always going to be players who are really smart and are trying to find loopholes in the rules to force the refs to give them free throws.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be a fight. It's just good that they're acknowledging that now because it was getting out of control the last few years.
Yeah, and they're going to complain. So if they're gonna try and get their calls
for sure, because you should. You're trying to win, and you should look for every advantage. And Chris Paul and Harden both did a great job with that.
Yeah.
And the league was very slow to adapt the rules, but they are starting to adapt the rules, and that's what's. It's good for the overall health of the game. Or you shoot 50 free throws and it takes 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then no one wants to watch anymore.
Yeah.
I think I want to just finish it off with just one last question. What are your thoughts on compare when everyone talk, obviously not necessarily GOAT talk, but talking to your dad even about comparing generations and comparing players of generations, how obviously the game changes so much in the NBA from generation to generation. What are your thoughts on how that works? And obviously we had talked about social media and the impacts of that, and GOAT talk, who's the best ever.
That's where it's hard, that's why, the talking points you see in public are what, who's the best, and it always has to be one guy because it's more fun to talk that way. But my view of it is that every era has a best team and a best player because the rules always change, the resources always change, and things are always getting better. So, LeBron is probably better than MJ, but MJ was so much, in the context of his era, he was so much better than the second best player.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I view all that stuff. That Bulls team was so much better than everyone else that they played. Just like the Lakers had been before them and the Celtics before them and the Warriors after them for a few years. The Spurs in between.
Yeah.
There's always, it's really hard to compare eras because strategies get better, the rules in the league change. Kareem was flying in 27C, sitting on a United flight, and these guys all, we've been flying charter for 30 years in the NBA. Like, there's so many changes that gradually occur over time, but if you just drop, Bulls team wasn't shooting threes at all.
Yeah.
Like if that team played the Warriors, they'd be confused. It's all this stuff they'd never have seen before. They get crushed. And none of those guys had trained to play what basketball was like in 2017. So just like 10 years from now, there's going to be some team that would probably have demolished the 2017 Warriors just because the game changes at all times. And things always evolve and get better.
Got a team of five Wembys.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
And no one could have, I mean, can you imagine hearing 10 years ago, like, yeah, he's going to be a 7'4" wing drafted? What are you talking about? And he can shoot, and he can dribble, and he can pass.
Yeah.
But it's always, that's like technology. Everything just continues to evolve and get better. It doesn't mean that the original iPod was a failure.
Yeah.
It was a massive success, but if you dropped it into today's world, it would look stupid.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else before we go?
That should be good.
All right.